I think a lot of times we kid ourselves into thinking we're making forward progress because we're working on the perfection of this. But really, we're just running on a hamster wheel. There's no forward progress in your business. You're just wasting your time day in and day out trying to, quote unquote, perfect this project.
This is The Entrepreneur Way with Neil Ball. Unlocking the secrets of successful entrepreneurs 7 days a week. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Twitter at Neil D. Ball. Napoleon Hill said the power of the mastermind is the driving force. To discover how you can unlock the potential in your business using the power of a mastermind, go to mastermindunlimited.com. And now, here is your host, Neil Ball.
Hello, it's Neil Ball. Thank you so much for joining me today on The Entrepreneur Way. The Entrepreneur Way is about the entrepreneur's journey, the vision, the mindset, the commitment, the sacrifice, failures and successes. I'm so excited to bring you our special guest today, Katherine Keller. But before I introduce you to her, I have a quote from Annie Lennox, where she said, "People ask me so many questions. The Entrepreneur Way asks the questions so we all get the insight, inspiration and ideas to apply in our businesses." Katherine, welcome to the show. Are you ready to share your version of the Entrepreneur Way with us?
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming on the show, Katherine. Over the last 5 years, Katherine Keller has advised, counselled and worked side by side with some of the top business entrepreneurs around the globe. She has helped clients increase revenues and build six-figure incomes, monetize their messages, create and organize lucrative programs and trainings, reposition themselves as leaders in their industries and more. Katherine has run large training programs with members from all over the world. However, today, she most enjoys working with a select number of high-level entrepreneurs on a one-to-one basis. Entrepreneurs choose to work with Katherine because she is a true business leader who listens and understands the obstacles that emerging business owners face. Katherine, can you provide us with some more insight into your business and personal life to allow us to get to know more about what you do and who you are?
My story, I'll try to sum it up as quickly as I can, but it started about 10 years ago when I went through a divorce. I was working in the corporate world as a marketer. My degree is in marketing. But my life just sort of fell apart. I think a lot of people can relate at some point in time of feeling like they've hit bottom and not sure where they need to head next. And I knew that I needed to be able to be there for my two children who were very young at that time. I knew that I needed to have flexibility in my work. And I knew that I had an entrepreneurial spirit, but never had the drive to actually go for it until I was sort of forced into it. And I started by working with my best friend who had her own business at that time, but she was in the direct sales business. So a lot of times in that industry, people are nurses and they're teachers and they're bankers who decide to take on this business in their spare time. But they have no business background. They have no marketing background. They have no managerial background to really be able to push that forward like they want to. And so my best friend had been a teacher but decided she wanted to take on this new business and she needed some help. And so I stepped in with my marketing background and began to help her. And she introduced me to new people and it began to grow. And here now, 6 years later, I have about 90,000 followers on Twitter and over 100,000 followers across the boards on social media. I have clients in 7 different countries. So my days are long because I span about 18 different time zones with my clients, and it has just been an incredible journey.
Okay. So you make money now by consulting and coaching people, is that right?
That is correct. I still help them market and brand themselves, but a lot of times my clients, they just need that everyday push sometimes to remind them of their goals, or they need somebody that's going to break down the overwhelm into simple steps. This is what we're going to focus on first. This is what we're going to focus on second, because there's so much to be done when you have your own business. So that's the coaching side of things, but I still do the marketing and branding side as well.
Okay. And what do you enjoy most about what you do, Katherine?
I love reducing the overwhelm. I love when people come to me and say, where do I focus? Do I need to be building a better website? Do I need to be on social media? Do I need to be on all the social media platforms? Do I need to be focusing on blogging every single day? And they are just about to quit because it's so much, it's a never ending to-do list. They don't know where to start. And so after we talk, we figure out the direction we're headed, we figure out the goals that we have set, then I'm able to come up with a plan that says, step 1, let's do this. Let's get that crossed off the list. Priority number 2 is this. And when you break that down, there's such a sense of relief that they have, like a weight has lifted off their shoulders. And they feel like, yeah, I can actually do this.
And what is it that drives you?
My children. I during that time of the divorce and starting my business was not a pretty time of my life. There were extreme amount of stress, financial debt. We lost our home. We lost our car. We have been at the bottom. God, I hope we've been at the bottom of the barrel. And so, you know, there are times that I didn't want to get out of bed, and I didn't want to work on building this business, and I didn't want to dream about the future. But when I have 2 little ones that need me to put food on the table, that forced me to keep going, and it still does, because I continually want a better life for them.
Mm-hmm. And how do you relax when you're not working in your business?
I love cooking. Cooking is a passion of mine. So I'm an introvert, despite what people think when they see me on video blogs or in interviews. I'm actually very much an introvert. So because I'm on the phone all day with clients or I'm taking care of children, anytime I can get alone in the kitchen by myself is a wonderful time for me.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any entrepreneurial role models?
Tony Robbins is one of my biggest role models, just simply because I love the balance that he brings between the psychological side of things, but the also action steps that need to be taken. A lot of us tend to sit there and work on the self-improvement side of things, but we never take action. And then there are those who are taking constant action, but they're never working on their mental clarity or focus or wiping out the cobwebs. So I think Tony does the best job of balancing those 2 aspects.
Yeah, he's absolutely amazing, Tony, isn't he? I must
Yes.
admit, I like him.
Yes.
So, Katherine, what I'd like to do now is just talk about the time before you were an entrepreneur.
Okay.
What difficulties did you have to overcome when you started your business?
Oh, that's such a big question. We could spend an hour on that one. The tangible obstacles that I had to overcome, like I said, we lost our home, we lost our car. So for me, having $10, it was difficult for me to put that towards. Should I put that towards a newsletter service, or do I put that towards putting food on the table for the kids? You know, so there was this constant battle of I felt like I was gambling money away that I didn't really have to gamble because I had 2 kids to take care of. So those were the tangible obstacles, but there were so many mental obstacles I had to overcome of self-worth, self-doubt, just who am I? And why I used to charge just pennies for my services because I just didn't feel I was worthy enough to charge more than that. So there were obstacles on both ends of those spectrums.
And how did you reconcile the gamble of that $10 that you talked about before? What made you decide that it was worth going for it and doing what you're doing now?
A quote by Chalene Johnson. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Chalene Johnson. She always says, fear money, don't make money. Fear money, don't make money. And that is because a lot of entrepreneurs tend to, what we would say in the United States, be penny smart and dollar stupid. We try to save our pennies, and in the grand scheme of things, we're actually losing dollars. And so when I made those connections, that I realized I am never going to make money until I start spending some money. It didn't become, I won't lie to you and say it was easy to write those checks or send that money off, but I understood that it was a necessary evil to build the business.
So you must have had some kind of idea of the goals that you were trying to aim for or things. Had you defined that at that point?
I did, but looking back, I never obtained those goals, and thank God I didn't. The goals that I had at that point were completely different, but when I think most entrepreneurs can agree, when you start off on a journey, you have to be flexible enough to change your path or change your goals. And so I can see over the last 6 years how it's maneuvered and changed to get me to the place that I am today. And having gone through that experience, I recognize today that the goals that I have for 5 years now may or may not actually be achieved, but it's going to push me forward, and maybe something else even better is going to unveil itself to me.
Yeah. And did you have any doubts that delayed you starting your business?
Oh, absolutely. Again, it goes back to worthiness of who am I? I had a degree in marketing. I've worked in corporate marketing, but used to, I felt it was a burden, but today I feel it's an honor to work with moms and dads and people in their home who are wanting to better their lives, who are wanting to build a successful business. And they look to me to help them with that. And today, that's a huge honor for me to have that responsibility. But 6 years ago, that was a huge burden. And I didn't feel worthy enough to carry that responsibility. So it definitely kept me from taking steps that were available to me, but I was too afraid to do it.
And you mentioned corporate marketing. How do you think that your knowledge of corporate marketing differed from what's actually required of the people that you talk to now? Because I think there is a difference, isn't there? So I just wonder what your thoughts are.
There is, absolutely. One of the things that I tell home business owners, they tend to try to make themselves sound like $1 million, which is good. But in the corporate world, they're trying to make themselves sound like your next door neighbor. So because we trust corporate, we don't trust corporate. We trust our neighbors. And so they're trying to, one of the major supermarkets here in the United States, their tagline is your neighborhood market. Well, they're actually nationwide, but they want to give that feel that they are the people next door that you can trust. But home business owners, the small business entrepreneur tends to forget about that. They tend to forget that that's a huge asset in their corner. And so when we're marketing for a small business owner or a home-based business owner, we really want to make sure we bring out the authenticity. For me, that authenticity is talking about the fact that I'm a single mom, and there are days where I just don't stop from 5 a.m. till 11 p.m. and I'm exhausted. And some days I don't know how I'm going to keep going. And some days I'm super optimistic, and other days I don't feel motivated. And if I can continue to be authentic like that, people are drawn to me because they see themselves in my story.
What mistakes did you make that slowed your journey?
Fear. Fear is the biggest one. I tell people, I write for Entrepreneur Magazine. It's a worldwide magazine. People like Richard Branson write for Entrepreneur Magazine. And when they asked me to write for them, I was, for about 10 seconds, huge honor. It was brought me to tears. What an honor that this place that I've been recognized now by this magazine. And after those 10 seconds passed, I was petrified. And I actually had it in my head that I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't worthy enough to write for Entrepreneur Magazine. And had I not had a business coach at that time in my life, I probably would not have taken that step. Mm-hmm. But I had somebody holding me accountable to moving forward and didn't give me the option to go backwards.
Yeah. So how did you end up being asked to write for Entrepreneur Magazine? What was it that you were doing at the time that made that happen?
Just blogging. I had built a very large social media following at that point, especially on Twitter. I think at that point I had about 60,000 followers on Twitter, and I was just sharing my blog posts. And as I said earlier, being authentic about it. These are the struggles. These are the tools that I feel have helped me. These are the videos that have motivated me. And so one of the editors from Entrepreneur came across one of my blog posts and contacted me.
Mm. And what are some of the things that you did before you started your business that would be helpful tips to some of the listeners who haven't yet taken the first step on the entrepreneur way?
I was very fortunate in my childhood, I was very fortunate to have parents who were very supportive. And so even though I was going through a time of divorce, I still had family that believed in me and who supported me. So I know that not everybody is that fortunate, but I think getting some sort of accountability, even if you have to hire a coach, or even if it's just your neighbor or a good friend, having somebody that's going to hold you accountable towards moving forward. It's the same if you're wanting to lose weight and get healthier, or you're wanting to quit smoking. Having somebody to hold you accountable to that is a huge step forward. Mm-hmm.
Katherine, what I'd like to do now is just talk to you about the entrepreneurial journey a little bit more now. So do you think culture is important from the beginning in a business?
I do. But because I work with small business owners or home-based business owners, I can tell you that the culture of my business has changed every few years. And so I think that you need to have a mindset of who you are and what you want the culture of your business to be. But especially if you are a home-based business owner, be open to changing and adapting as you learn what your customers and clients also need from you as well. I started just strictly with marketing and helping people with their marketing strategies. And I had it all laid out of how I wanted my business to go as far as that went. And then 4 years down the road, I realized these people really need me to be more than just a marketing consultant for them. They need me to break this down for them. They need me to give them some direction. They need me to hold them accountable to turning things in or taking steps forward. So the culture of my business has completely changed from what I had in mind 6 years ago.
And just actually just thinking about that. So that change has come about because you've really adapted as you've gone along. That's what you're really saying there, isn't it? So,
exactly. That would be a really quick way to say the 1,000 words I just said. Yes.
No, I was just making sure I understood what you were saying properly. That's all.
Yes, and that's exactly it. I think you have to be flexible and adaptable, because once you may have your mind set on what your future clients and customers need from you, but I have not yet worked with a business who hasn't had to adapt and change. So being rigid is only going to hold you back, and deciding what your culture is going to be and we're going to stick to that is going to hold your business back.
So how many of the small business owners you come across actually sit down and actually define what the culture is going to be? Do any do that?
That is a good question. I have, from the home-based business owner perspective, none of them. And a lot of them don't even understand what a culture or what branding, they don't know who they are. They don't know what they bring to the table of customers, they just know they want to make money. That's where a lot of them are at, to be honest. Now, when I work with bigger businesses, they've been around for a while, and they kind of have a better understanding of culture and the direction that they want. But for the small home-based business owner, I think one of the biggest mistakes they make is not figuring out why they want to do this and who they are and what they bring to the table that's different from everybody else.
And knowing what you know now, is there anything that if you'd known it when you started out would have helped you to shortcut the learning curve?
Yes, my perfectionism. I've actually wrote about this, I don't know how many articles in Entrepreneur about my perfectionism, which I've since learned perfectionism is just fear, but we like to label it perfectionism. So for me, I would have what I thought were brilliant ideas, and I would have to map it all out in my brain. Possibility A could happen, possibility B could happen. And so I would work on a website, or I'd work on this project, and I would burn the midnight oil, and for 3-4 days or 3 or 4 weeks, I would be working on this project, and it was never exactly perfect how I thought it should be, and it never got off the ground. So fast forward 6 years to today, if it's not perfect, it doesn't. We're sending it out anyway. We're going to do the best we can to make it look and feel like we want it to feel, but progress is better than perfection.
Yeah. So I heard somebody say, I think it was Eben Pagan actually said that it's better to be first than it is to be perfect.
Yes. Or it's better to, for me, it was a matter of just not taking a step forward at all. I think a lot of times we kid ourselves into thinking we're making forward progress because we're working on the perfection of this. But really, we're just running on a hamster wheel. There's no forward progress in your business. You're just wasting your time day in and day out trying to, quote unquote, perfect this project.
Yeah. How much does gut feeling influence your decisions in your business?
Used to, not at all, because I was too afraid to listen to my gut. Today, I would say it's huge. And I've learned, and that's only been through trial and error of learning, that when I have a gut feeling to do something, I used to maybe put it on the list of things to think about, and I'd meditate, and I'd walk away from it, and I'd give it a few weeks, and then it would just usually disappear. And now I've learned if I have a gut feeling that I need to make a phone call, or I need to respond to this email, or I need to take this project on, or I need to send out a newsletter to these clients that have this in it, I do it now. Because if procrastinating will only, it will only disappear after that. It usually goes off my radar. So why has your viewpoint on that changed? Is it because you've got more experience to what you do, or have you just made a conscious decision to change the way you look at things? It's both, but the experience has, I shouldn't say we as in all of us, but I think for the majority of us, when we have that experience behind us that says, when there's a green light, you need to go now, and the fear tends to diminish, because that was the only thing keeping me from going forward was the fear. And so through the experience, I've learned green light means now, and you do it now. And I trust that. And I've learned to trust through experience.
Katherine, life is made of constant change, whether we like it or not. And many say the only constant in life is change. How do you try to keep up with change?
My favorite quote, and it's on my desktop on a sticky note, is, "This too shall pass." And we tend to say this too shall pass when we're talking about negative times in our lives. We're at the bottom, and that's what we would say to somebody to try to help them feel better. This too shall pass. But every day, whether it's something good that I'm experiencing, whether I'm spending time with my kids, I have to remember this too shall pass. I need to enjoy this moment, because in a year or 2 or 6 years from now, they're not going to be little kids anymore. And then when I'm going through the negative times, or a project isn't going the way that I want it to go, this too shall pass is always in the forefront of my mind. And I think that keeps me more fluid and flexible, because I remember that whether it's good or bad, it's not always going to be this way.
So, well, you should know this, especially from marketing. I mean, if you look at marketing over the last 10 or 20 years, it's changed an awful lot. So how do you keep up with that type of change?
The marketing world, and in particular, the social media world, is ever changing. You know, Facebook's changing its algorithms about every 2 months now. To try to keep up with that is a full-time job. What I tell for the small business entrepreneurs, if we were to try to keep up with, let's say, the newest, latest, greatest social media platform that's come out, and people don't realize there's hundreds of social media platforms. We know of the big ones such as Twitter and Facebook and those, but there's hundreds of social media platforms. And trying to keep up with all of that, you don't have enough time in the day. Most of the people I work with, they're solopreneurs, or if they do have a team, it's maybe 5 or 10. I have some as big as 50. But for those solopreneurs, they are the janitor and the manager and the marketing director and the accountant and all of that for their business. So the best thing that they can do is find what works for them and stick with it and reevaluate maybe after a year or 2 years. But we call it the shiny object syndrome. Like a fish, they just chase after the next shiny object and they never get ahead, or they feel they have to be on all of these different platforms, or they have to have this or that. So stick with, if you're on Facebook and you're a big believer in Facebook, don't feel you have to be on Twitter and Periscope and Pinterest and Instagram in order to be relevant. Be where you focus on something, stick with that, and reevaluate every year or so.
What is your favorite book on entrepreneurialism, business, personal development, leadership, or motivation? And can you tell us why you have chosen it?
That question probably changes once a month. So I will tell you, the answer that it is for this month. Really, one of the favorites is called The 4-Hour Work Week. It's by Tim Ferriss. And the reason I love his book, because he focuses in on finding that balance in our lives between being an entrepreneur but actually living your life. So often when I'm working with solopreneurs, small business entrepreneurs, they are chained to a desk. They wanted to start their own business because they wanted to have more freedom. And in actuality, now they're working 60 or 70 hours a week. So Tim, in his book, breaks that down into making sure that we understand that we're more productive if we take time for ourselves. We're more productive if we get rid of all the nonsense and and look at our business as a whole. Where can we delegate? What can we get rid of? What are we doing that's superfluous?
Yeah. Everyone, when you have a busy life, listening to audiobooks is a great way to expand your knowledge in the time when you may be doing other things, such as driving or when you are at the gym. We have a special offer for you of a free audiobook of your choosing. To choose your free audiobook, go to www.freeaudioboooffer.com. As long as you haven't already signed up, then you will qualify. Katherine, what I'd like to do with you now is speculate about the future a little bit. What one thing would you do with your business if you knew that you could not fail?
I've been talking a lot about fear and how fear has held me back in the past. And I mentioned Tony Robbins, and I think one of the best examples that he has given is that there's always going to be a little bit of fear. There's always going to be a little bit of uncomfortableness. And so for me, it's recognizing what would I do if I knew I couldn't fail. It would be limitless, because what holds all of us back, I think at this point, is just the fear or the concern or the doubt of, or the feeling that we might be gambling in our success in the future. And Tony talks about how our lives are like a thermostat in our home. We might have our thermostat in our home set at 68 degrees. And if it starts getting too cool, that's fair. Sorry, I know you're in Celsius. I'm over here in Fahrenheit.
I can do both.
68 degrees. And if it starts to get too cool in the home, maybe it jumps down to 64 degrees, that thermostat's going to kick on and warm you back up. And it's the same with our business. When we start to get a little bit comfortable and maybe we're not having as many clients come in or we're not working our business like we know we want to or should, eventually it's going to get to the point where that thermostat's going to kick on. You're going to get on fire, you're going to get motivated, and you're going to move forward. But then again, the problem is when we get to that 68 degrees and maybe we keep going and maybe we keep working hard and we're pushing it and we're building our business and now we're at maybe 76 degrees. Well, that's uncomfortable for us. 76 degrees is uncomfortable because we have this thermostat set at 68. So we start relaxing and maybe we don't push it as hard as we could. And so we can get back down to that 68 degrees. So for me, I would love to just keep pushing that thermostat up. And if I knew I couldn't fail, then it wouldn't feel uncomfortable to me to be at 74, 78, 82 degrees.
Good answer. What skill, if you were excellent at it, would help you the most to double your business?
Saying no. That's been a big one for me. I think that's a big one for a lot of entrepreneurs, but in particular with women, I have found that saying no is one of the best weapons in our arsenal, and we are afraid to use it. For me, saying no to smaller things gives me the opportunity to say yes to bigger things. But because I don't want to tell people no, I don't want to offend them or make them upset, I'll say yes. I used to especially say yes to, oh, I'll do that. Oh, I'll make that phone call. Oh, I'll send that email for you if they asked me to. When in reality, if I just said no to all of those things, I would have freed up an hour, 2 hours, 10 hours to do something much bigger.
Someone once said to me, the art of doing good business is knowing what bad business is. I think that's
that's a good one. Another one is when you say yes to something, or when you say yes to something, you're always saying no to something else. And it doesn't matter if you're saying yes to watching TV, and that means you're saying no to going to the gym. Or maybe you're saying yes to that pizza, and you're saying no to that salad. Or maybe you're saying yes to a healthier lifestyle, and you're saying no to a non-healthy lifestyle. But whatever it is, there's always a trade-off. So you have to keep that in mind, because anytime you say yes, what are you giving up? What are you saying no to? If I say yes to an extra meeting, I might be saying no to my children, time with my children.
I can take this even further. I'm just thinking, when people don't make a decision, you're automatically making a decision not to do something, which is a similar sort of thing, isn't it?
Exactly. And not making a decision takes it even further because of the mental stress and strain that you bring on as well. So we just let that fester inside of us, thinking we're not making a decision, but really we are.
Absolutely. In 5 years from now, if a well-known business publication was publishing an article on your business after talking to your customers and suppliers, what would you like it to say?
I would like it to be an article about authenticity and its place in the small business world. I think that we tend to try to put up a front, that we've got it all together, that we have it figured out. And really, what I have found is the more authentic I am, the more relatable I am. And that makes me more marketable as well. So I would love for my customers and clients who are interviewed to talk about how they appreciated the authenticity, which isn't always easy. It's so much easier to say than to do, being authentic and transparent with people, especially for my personality. But I would love for them to acknowledge that.
We are now at the part of the show where you share 3 golden nuggets with us. Katherine, what is your favourite quote and how have you applied it?
It's not going to be a surprise that I'm going to share a Tony Robbins quote, but it is decisions shape your destiny. And I'd heard that quote for a long, long time before I actually had the light bulb moment around it, that it's not just big decisions. It's not just the decision to start your business. It's the decision of what are you going to do this morning? How are you going to spend your time today? Are you going to make that phone call? So, success doesn't happen overnight, but neither does failure. And so it's failing to make that phone call or sending that email or doing the research that needs to be done. And all of those are made or not made through the decisions that we make.
Do you have any favorite online resources that you can share with us?
My favorite online resource would be Hootsuite, Hootsuite. It's a social media online tool. They have a free version, and then the paid version has more tools with it. But because I have an international business, I'm not up at all hours of the day to be able to tweet to people or at people who might be in Australia and would want to see my tweets. Things like Twitter, you've got it's got a 4-minute lifespan on the Twitter reel before it's old news. So Hootsuite has allowed me to continue my social media even when I'm in bed.
What is your best advice to other entrepreneurs?
Would you roll your eyes if I gave you another Tony Robbins quote?
You can do whatever you like. Tony Robbins has so much wisdom and knowledge.
I know.
We could talk about Tony Robbins for the whole webinar. I mean, but podcast, couldn't we?
We could do a Tony Robbins tribute. My best advice is something I heard from him. If you're going to take the island, you have to burn the boats, which essentially in the military world meant if you were going to go to war, you pull up to the island and you've got your boat sitting there. There is always a plan B. If things don't start going as you feel or want them to go, you could always run back to the boat and start rowing the other way. But if you burn the boats, you have a motivation and a fire and a passion inside of you that you wouldn't have if you have a plan B. That's a Will Smith quote too. He said he never has had a plan B. There's no reason for a plan B. There's only plan A. And I think as small business entrepreneurs who are wanting to take that leap, they tend to just put their toe in the water and they take the temperature and they test it out a little bit and they kind of play around with it. And I can tell you, and anybody who's been an entrepreneur can tell you, that testing the waters is never going to give you a full perspective of what this does for you, being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I think that Tony Robbins thing might have come from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, where he talks about burning desire. I think that's probably a take on that, isn't it?
It is. I had not heard it until I listened to Tony Robbins, but it is from that, yes.
Yeah. Everyone, if you didn't manage to get a note of Catherine's favourite resource or her favourite book, then you can find the links on Catherine's show notes page. Just go to theentrepreneurway.com and search for Katherine or Katherine Keller in the search box. Katherine, is there anything else that you'd like to add about your business?
About my business in particular, or being an entrepreneur? Because I could talk for hours on either.
You can talk about both if you like.
I think, honestly, not necessarily my business, but being an entrepreneur is a journey that's going to push you further and faster than any other journey that I know of. You just have to be brave enough to do it. So I have a huge passion and compassion for people that take that step. And I highly encourage you to do it. I've spent many, many nights in tears, but I've also never had the self-confidence that I have now, today, after doing that.
Katherine, it really has been an honour having you on the show. You've broken down what it takes to be an entrepreneur and given us so much information and great insight into the entrepreneur way. So thank you very much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Entrepreneur Way. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Twitter @Neil D. Ball.